Okay, I had you watch a video on Thursday over order of operations, and you need to make sure you watch that. That's going to be kind of this, what we call unit here. And then on Tuesday, yesterday, I had you watch a video. It's over distribution. There's several names for that, but distribution is a part of it. And so I had you watch that kind of built off of order of operations. So you need to watch those so that you can kind of follow along. But this is my some of my explanations of it. It's good to hear it. Hopefully I can clear up any confusion or just kind of give you a different look at it. There's all different ways to kind of teach this and talk about these topics. So we can kind of cover some of the same material, but it gives you a more repeat here and a chance to look at it. Now, one of the things that is used is this thing called PEMDAS. Actually, when I taught it in high school, we actually called it PEMA. We took out the D and the S. There's some teachers that teach it as GMA, okay, and so I'm trying to show there's not one exact way, and it's kind of up to what works best for you. But this is kind of the universal one, PEMDAS, that's used the most. And I'm going to explain the differences, that they're really all the same. It's just how you kind of want to describe it. Now, I've wrote it like this to show you that one of the confusing things of PEMDAS is, each one of these letters stand for something. If you make sure you watch the video so that you can know what each one stands for. But this is parenthesis, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. And the problem with just saying it like PEMDAS is students begin to think that multiplication has to come before division, or that addition has to come before subtraction. And that's not always the case. And so that's why I kind of write it like this, to show that yes, parentheses always goes first. You're always going to do that first. And you're always going to do this second. That doesn't change, exponents. But then multiplication division is a tie. So an example of that would be like if I had 8 divided by 2 times 3, okay? If you're looking at this and you think, oh, I have to do the multiplication first, and so I get 6, and 8 divided by 6 doesn't come out even, and you're going to have a fraction. That's not correct. Multiplication division's a tie, so that whichever one comes first, going left to right, is what you do first. So in this case, you're actually going to divide first. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. And so it comes out to a number here that is a whole number in this case. So this would be that if you have a division and multiplication, that's all you're left with, then they're a tie. There's not one that comes before the other. You just go from left to right. Okay? Same thing with addition and subtraction. They are a tie. So like if you had 8 minus 6 plus 4, you don't have to do the addition first like it looks like here. You would just go left to right, and since they're both addition and subtraction, then you just subtract first and add. And you say, well, does it really matter? Well, it does, because if I do the addition first, if I do it wrong and do the addition first, I get 8 minus 10, which 8 minus 10 we know is negative 2. But if you do it the way you're supposed to, meaning they're a tie and you just go left to right, 8 minus 6 is 2, and 2 plus 4 is 6. So that's way different than negative 2. Okay, so that's why I kind of teach it. That's why we used to teach it as PEMA. We just taught that M stands for multiplication and division, and then A stands for addition and subtraction. But that was also a little confusing because you're like, well, what happened to those two letters? This kind of shows that you could write it, PEMDAS, but just know that it doesn't mean that M has to come before D and A has to come before S. Now, one thing about it, though, is this is pretty good representation, because you do have to go in this order, meaning if you have a multiplication and then a subtraction addition, you do the multiplication first. And let me give you an example of that. So like if I have 3 times 4 minus 2 plus 6. Okay, so here's this long problem here. We do the multiplication first. Okay, so we're going to do 12, And then so we'll get 12. We'll do that first and rewrite. And I would suggest, as you're learning this, to just do one step at a time and do that one first and then rewrite the rest. Once you're looking at this, then you go, okay, now I have a subtraction and addition. Well, subtraction and addition's a tie, so I'm just going to go from left to right. 12 minus 2 is 10. Okay, so I just did one step, and now my last step is to add those two. Okay, so that shows that you have to go in this order, 1, 2, 3, 4, so that you can do the problem correctly. Okay, so as far as learning it like this would probably be a good way to write it so that you can get used to this being a tie and this being a tie. Okay, and so that is one different thing I wanted to show, different maybe than the video went through, but this is called order of operations. Operations just means addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. It's just, those are all operations, and this tells you which order you go into. Okay, so I'm going to do a few of these problems to just give you a couple of examples. So let's do 8 divided by 2. It's always scary when I do these just off the cuff because I want to make sure I don't end up with fractions. You can do them with fractions, just we're not going into that. So let's do times 4 minus 3 plus 6, okay? So here's a problem that we're going across. Now, here's an example of, I've got division, multiplication, subtraction, addition. So I got 4 different operations, so I need to know what order. Well, division and multiplication are a tie, so I'm going to go left to right here. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then I'm going to rewrite everything. And then I'm going to do multiplication, so that's 16. Okay, 4 times 4. And then I've got a subtraction and addition. Those are a tie, so I'm going to just go left to right. 16 minus 3 is 13. And then 13 plus 6 is 19. Okay. Let me do one with parentheses in there. So let's do 8 divided by 4 minus 2. Okay, so here's an example of, okay, you got division, you got subtraction, and you say, well, I got to do this first. Well, no, we do parentheses first. And so inside the parentheses, we're going to do that first. I know it's a subtraction problem, but because it's in parentheses, we're going to do it first. 4 minus 2 is 2. And now I just have 8 divided by 2, which is 4. Okay, and even in parentheses, so let's do another one, 10 times, well, sorry if you're following along, 10, this way we know 10 minus, that way I don't have to worry about it coming out even. And then let's do 8 divided by 2 times 3 plus 6, or something like that. Okay, so in this case, we've got this 10 minus, and then we've got these problems in here. Now, we've got a lot going on inside the parentheses, but this is where we need to start. And so this right now is its own little problem. We're going to worry about this at the end of it, but right now this is its own problem, and so we have to follow order of operations in here as well. So that means we're going to have 10 minus, and then in here, we're going to have to go in order, and so we're going to go, let's see, division first. Okay, and then multiplication. Okay, and then, yes, this is addition and this is subtraction, but this is still in the parentheses. We're not out of there yet. Okay, and now, so now we're done with everything inside the parentheses. Now we can do 10 minus 18, which is negative 8. Okay, so it just takes some practice and going through, but if you keep following this and using this chart, it will lead you out. Let me do one with an exponent, okay, and show you the difference between an exponent inside the parentheses and an exponent outside. So let's do 8 minus 6 squared plus 4 divided by 2, okay? So following PEMDAS, parentheses goes first, so we do that first. That's 2, and we still got it squared. Okay, so we're done inside the parentheses. Now we do our exponent. 2 squared is 4, 2 times itself. Okay, and then we're out of parentheses, we're out of exponents. Multiplication, division is next, so that means before we do this addition, we're going to do 4 divided by 2. And now all we're left with is an addition problem, which makes it 6. Okay, now let me show you how it's a little bit different than this. Let's do 4 plus 4 squared inside the parentheses. And let's do minus 2 times 8, okay? So here's an example of, we've got a parentheses, we got an exponent, we got a multiplication, we got a subtraction, but inside the parentheses is where we start. But even inside the parentheses, we gotta follow order of operations. So before we do the addition, we have to do the exponent. So this is gonna be 4 plus 16. 4 times itself is 16. That is still in, we've not done this part of the parentheses yet. Minus 2 times 8. Then we're going to work in here, that's 20. And I'm running out of paper. This is going to be a little bit smaller. So we got 20 minus 2 times 8. And then before we do the subtraction, we're going to do the multiplication. So 20 minus 16, and that equals 4. I cheated, I went off to the side here. Okay, so that's the difference of having an exponent outside. That means you work in here first, then you do your exponent. Or an exponent inside, you still have to follow order of operations. So we did the exponent first and then work from there. Okay, so that's 2 different examples. You can come back and watch these and slow them down if you need to. But those are a couple different examples of that. Okay, on distribution, I just want to show you that, okay, distribution, and like I said, these are my explanations. We're going to spend some more time on this, but I wanted to go ahead and make a video for you of me explaining some of this. But let's say they walked you through, let's say I had this, okay? Now, I will tell you that if you're working, so first off, we identify, there's no sign in between here. Remember, that means that we multiply. We talked about that when we were working with integers. If there's no sign in between this and the parentheses, then that means to multiply. So we have to multiply, but we just learned that, hey, we need to do the parentheses first, okay? So believe it or not, I actually teach this a little different than what they say as far as, well, we're always going to make this a distribution. To me, if it's just as easy to work inside the parentheses, meaning do this, we get 8 minus 3 is 5. That's an easy operation. We're going in order, so that's 5, and then 3 times 5 is 15. I'm okay with you doing it that way. Okay, now, had we used distribution, same problem. Had we done with, and we're going to learn, we need to learn how to do this, because I'll explain when we have to use it. But this means, okay, you do 3 times 8, which is 24. And 3 times negative 3, you have to distribute. You have to multiply it times that, and you have to multiply it times the negative 3. So 3 times negative 3, we've learned, is negative 9. 24 minus 9 is also 15. You're going to get the same answer, whether you do it like this or you do it like this. To me, if you can keep it smaller when you go to multiply, the better. So if you've got numbers in here that you can work and do, I would suggest doing this and then doing your multiplication. It's following order of operations. It's following PEMDAS. It's easy to do. I would suggest this. The problem comes, and I know I keep alluding that we're going to be adding letters. It's like I'm, just trying to implement that slowly so that kind of get us ready. But eventually we're going to get to a problem that's maybe 3 times x minus 4, okay, where we've got a letter inside here. And like I said, when we get to this next, I'm going to explain why we use letters. But in this case, if you go to If you go to subtract, you don't know what x is. You can't work inside here first. You can't say x minus 4 is like something that you can work like a number. So in that case, we have to use distribution. And we're going to learn, once we get into letters, we're going to learn, just so you don't have to know this yet, but 3 times x is 3x, and then 3 times negative 4 is negative 12, and so that would be our answer in this case. Now we're going to get to that, but I wanted to show you that eventually we have to know how to do distribution because we're stuck with having to do it. But up until now, up until this point, you can still do the subtraction inside the parentheses and then do your multiplication. Okay, I wanted to point that out, but it's good practice if you want to try something like this to get used to distributing. 3 times 8, 3 times negative 3, and then do your subtraction and you get 15, okay? Good thing to do maybe is to work them like this first and then make sure you're coming out the same. I know it's a lot of work, but that's what we do with math. We practice so that we understand it and we get better at it, so that when we get to this harder material, that we are prepared and kind of ready for it. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a photo of a couple problems of order of operations and a couple problems of distribution that I'm going to have you do for your assignment today. You need to watch this video. Obviously, if you've made it this far, you've watched the video, but then that photo will be the problems that I want you to do for today's assignment, and you'll upload your answers to the classwork assignment. Okay, thanks guys.